guys, how's it going? It's Al. Welcome to the Week 9 first look on DraftKings. We're going to take a first look at the NFL DFS slate. On the main slate, there are 10 games this week. There's a lot of buys, and we have some really superstar teams that are off the slate because of primetime games. You've got the Browns, the Cowboys, the Broncos, the Giants, the Steelers, and the 49ers all on bye week. We have the Eagles playing on Thursday night, the Chiefs and Titans playing on Sunday night, and on Monday night we lose the Ravens and Lamar Jackson from the main slate as well. DraftKings has really tightened the screws when it's come to the salaries. You were kind of starved for value, specifically at the wide receiver position in week 8. That is where we have typically always looked for value. It has gotten really sketchy to try and find wide receiver value, and a lot of it failed last week. We're going to try and hit on some this week around our double stack and bring back, trying to build a tournament lineup for this weekend. So thank you guys for being here, and let's go.
He's a legend.
If you want to see the recap video from week 8, you can head over to the Al Smizzle Fantasy Football channel. You can just go very easily to smizzle.tv/FF. It will take you directly there. Every single Monday, I come out with the recap video. Here's week 7. Week 8 is in preparation and will be up and posted by the time you are watching this video. So go to Al Smizzle Fantasy Football. 4 other videos come out throughout the week for your season-long fantasy teams, weekly quarterback, running back, and wide receiver rankings, as well as a Rainmakers preview for the weekend. So make sure that you subscribe to the Al Smizzle Fantasy Football channel. And the Listener League is posted for week 9 as well. 4,500 entrants, $10 entry fee, 3 max, absolutely no rake. The best tournament on DraftKings. It is not in the lobby. You have to go to smizzle.tv/links to find the link to that, as well as you can find everything else that I do in there as well. So join. I will shout out all 10 of the top 10 finishers on that recap video on the Fantasy Football channel next Monday. So let's take a look at this slate. We have the Chargers against Atlanta. Atlanta's offense is redacted, even though Kyle Pitts had 19 points last week. I'm very happy for him and proud for him. But it's tough to use Atlanta players. They just don't want to throw it. Miami against Chicago, Carolina against Cincinnati, Green Bay, Detroit. This one has a total of 49. Las Vegas against the Jaguars. Indy visits New England. Buffalo against the Jets. Total of 47.5 there. Bills 12.5 point favorites in that one. Minnesota goes to Washington. Seattle plays Arizona in one of 2 afternoon games. That one also has a total of 49, with the Cardinals favored by 2, and the Buccaneers square off against the Rams in a battle of 2 teams that were previously very good but now can't protect their quarterbacks, and everything sucks. So very tough slate. As I mentioned, they have kind of really tightened the screws on the salaries. They've made it very tough to find value. There are difficult bring back plays. It is tough to find quarterbacks that you like at a cheap range. Like Trevor Lawrence has shown flashes, but has not seen like a 30-point game, only one above 25 points this year in a dink and dunk offense. Marcus Mariota threw the ball 28 times last week. Why the hell they threw it 28 times against Carolina, but only 13 against Cincinnati when they were down, baffles me. At least they're running him. He's got a solid floor. He's had multiple touchdowns 3 weeks this year, but like, how do you stack him and how do you get the most out of him on the games where he does do well? Like, they've thrown the ball to just randoms instead of the 2 guys that should get the ball. Matthew Stafford has not had a good time this year. Always running for his life. It has been like forever since he had a 20-point fantasy day, let alone anything that would win you a tournament. Jared Goff has found his way into tournament I don't know, not reliability, but like, he's been fine a couple of weeks this year, most notably weeks 2 and weeks 4. But last week they get close and they just ran it in with Jamal Williams a bunch of times. 321 yards, but only 1 touchdown over the last 3 weeks in total. Tom Brady really struggling, finally got the divorce finalized, so maybe he can put it behind him and compartmentalize and move forward from there. But the offensive line, clearly a problem. 3 touchdowns over the last 4 weeks for him, and only 1 game this year where he has thrown multiple touchdowns. Tampa Bay is a problem. Kirk Cousins goes to Washington in this spot. Joe Burrow going to be extremely popular going up against Carolina, but 3 touchdowns each of the last 2 games. They play on Monday night, so we don't have the final for that one. Jamar Chase is going to be out because they did not put him on IR, which is at least encouraging. So he's out with a broken hip. Like, all of a sudden, Jamar Chase is collecting AARP and social security checks. So T Higgins steps into a much higher volume role, but like his price tag has gone up from the low 6s where he pretty much resides all the time. They anticipated the bump in market share and bump in targets and put him up at 7,300. And they did the same with Tyler Boyd, upped him from the low 5s to the low 6s. So now the value is more dangerous. Like, still, they could get targets, but you look at the wide receivers that are in that range that T Higgins is in, and you're looking at like DeAndre Hopkins at 79, Jalen Waddle at 74, Mike Evans at 72, coming off of a couple of really big target games himself. Michael Pittman Jr., who has been heavily targeted. The change in quarterbacks did not change that. 9 more targets for him that week, but a lowered touchdown expectation. Amon-Ra St. Brown around 6,600. So like double stacking the Bengals is very, very tough. So when in doubt, I'm just going to double stack Josh Allen because I can. Like, it's possible for me to do that. I'm going to go with Diggs to find some value. I'm going to plug in Dawson Knox. I understand that he's a little bit thin, only 3 targets each of the last 2 games, but the random Josh Allen touchdown and gives us a little bit of the value that we need. And on the other side, to bring it back, presuming that they're going to be playing from behind, we saw a tremendous game finally, once again, from Garrett Wilson, the most talented wide receiver that they have on the New York Jets. Not sure why they have not been playing him since Wilson came back. The amount of snaps and routes that they were playing him the first few weeks, when he was an absolute stud and putting up peripherals in terms of end zone targets, red zone targets, making big catches, getting a lot of value out of his targets. They've turned more into a running and defense team. But like, good luck with all that going up against the Bills. You could try to run the football and keep the Bills offense off the field, but like when they start scoring and they get down 10, I could see them having to pass the ball. And the law firm of Wilson and Wilson did a good job of connecting last week for 115 yards, albeit for no touchdown. Big playability for only 4,800. We are struggling to find value at wide receiver. So that is my primary stack and bring back. The cover boy on this video, as you already saw at the running back spot, Travis Etienne has stepped into the perfect role right now. This is a dink and dunk offense. He has flashed really solidly in terms of big playability, running win rate on rushes, win rate on catches, a 48 or more yard gain in each of the last 3 games, 30 or more in each of the last 4 games on the ground. This is a guy who was more heralded for his usage in the passing game. He's only gotten 6 yards last week on 3 targets, caught 1 ball in week 7 for 5 yards. We need to see this be more steady, this targets column. They've got to get him 5 to 8 targets a game every single game. Running him for 24 times is just not going to be the way. It's not the path for Travis Etienne. We need to see that very similar usage, the Christian McCaffrey usage. We need to see the Alvin Kamara usage. 12 to 16 carries, 5 to 8 or 9 targets. And Travis Etienne at 6,300 only still sits in a place where he is going to be, I don't know how mega chalk he's going to be. Alvin Kamara against these same Las Vegas Raiders last week at 7,100, caught 9 balls on 10 targets, ran all over him, scored 3 touchdowns, and was only like 35% in high stakes cash, 12% in the Millionaire Maker. I kind of feel like, based on my initial look at where the value is this week, is that Etienne Jr. is going to be mega chalk this week. We shall see, especially coming off of the 2 straight 100-yard games. 6.5 on the ground, 8.1 on the ground, 8.6 on the ground, playing 80% of the snaps. He's a smash play. I don't feel the need to bring him back with anything, but feel free if you want to. Looking at the other running backs, as I said, very priced up. Austin Eckler, he's probably the best pay up option, right? He's on pace to break all of the receiving records at the running back position. He's 8,800. Tough for me to get to him in terms of this video, but very much in play, scoring a ton of touchdowns with 8 of them. 3 here, 2 here, and 3 over the last 2. All of them in the last 4 games. What I want to happen is not going to happen. I want to see this Chargers offense at like full strength, and we're not going to see that. Even if they get Keenan Allen back for this game, they've lost Mike Williams for the next few weeks. It's not shocking the way that I think, right? That like wide receivers, quarterbacks can be difference makers, and many, and some of them are. Patrick Mahomes is a difference maker. I believe that Herbert will grow into one. But quarterbacks are more reliant on the wide receivers that are around him, that double elite system that we have spoken about. Think of the teams that have those 2 elite wide receivers, Chase and Higgins, AJ Brown, Devontae Smith, Jalen Waddle, Tyreek Hill. Teams that have an alpha on one side and a budding alpha, if not another alpha on the other side, puts your offense in a much better spot to be productive, because those wide receivers can win more often and at more levels, and somebody's going to be open, making your quarterback's job a lot easier, and it makes these superstar quarterbacks' jobs easier. Right now, they've played 6-7 weeks without Keenan Allen, and now they're going to get him back, hopefully, and play 3-4 weeks without Mike Williams. So Austin Eckler eating up a ton of the target market share, and until that changes, he's going to be a super stud play. Dalvin Cook, don't like the way that they're using him right now, but he did have himself a big game in week 8. Jonathan Taylor, just tough sledding for him behind a really terrible offensive line that did not produce very many points against Washington, only 16 there. He will break off a big game at some point in the next few weeks because of the ability that he has to break long touchdowns with his speed and tackle breaking ability, but I'm not going to pay up $7,700. His price will continue to fall unless something changes. Aaron Jones is very much in play this week. As down as I am on this Green Bay offense, they do get the magic spot in Detroit. Like, there's few things that we want to attack. We want to attack the Browns with running backs. We don't get an opportunity to do that as they're on a bye week. We want to attack the Texans with opposing running backs. We don't get a chance to do that. They're on Thursday night. We want to attack the Lions with literally everything. And considering that they don't throw the ball at all, like, they'll throw it. Like, oh, he had this many attempts. They're not throwing it far. Like, 80% of Aaron Rodgers' attempts in week 8 were behind the line of scrimmage. Oof. 28.6 DraftKings points, 22.7 DraftKings points, only 7,400. You can get to him, and I'm probably going to have a lot of him. I'm assuming that he's going to be on my best buys list, but I think that there's a better option a little bit cheaper. Fournette at 6,600, he's fine, but Joe Mixon up against Carolina in a spot where I think he's going to get a little bit more usage. Not exactly like Austin Eckler, right? Where they lose one of their wide receivers and they have to throw the ball a ton to Austin Eckler. They're just not going to give Joe Mixon 8, 9, 10 targets, but they should give him a little bit more usage. Very predictably, I'm going to guess 24 plus opportunities each of the weeks that Jamar Chase misses. Last week against Atlanta, he had 20 opportunities. Really bad against New Orleans. Not sure where he got that. 17 here, 28 here, 19 here. It's yet to be seen what they're going to do on Monday night for week 8. They are playing against the Browns, what should be a smash spot for Joe Mixon. And if he smashes against those Browns, and if he runs for 100 yards like literally everybody's doing against the Browns and has himself a touchdown like all running backs are doing against the Browns, this is going to look like a very underpriced spot at 6,500. I'm going to plug in Joe Mixon as my second running back in that spot. Now, I don't have to have a bringbacks play in this spot. It's going to be another week where you're able to break the rules with the massive amount of bye weeks. And as weird as the pricing is, but I think that we have an emerging spot on the other side where we can find some value. DJ Moore has gotten a ton of volume, was getting great volume before Christian McCaffrey was dealt. But since Christian McCaffrey was dealt, 22 targets in 2 games, kind of a, I'm not going to say a game-saving touchdown for him for fantasy purposes, right? Like, obviously he tied the game, he took his helmet off, and like, that's a stupid penalty in and of itself, but like, also he should have known better. He knew the rules, but like, Terrace Marshall Jr. had 9 targets, including multiple end zone targets last week, has not gotten a touchdown, has had a 39-yard catch and a 20-yard catch each of the last 2 games. For 3,900, I think that we could do an awful lot worse. There's not a lot of value here. If there's another value that pops up on the slate under 4K, we can definitely go that route. I am contractually obligated not to say this guy's name, so I'm not going to say it. I'm going to go with Terrace Marshall Jr. in this spot. Gives me a little bit of secondary correlation with Joe Mixon and Carolina, who on the road and underdogs in this spot should be in positive game script spots to be able to pass the ball a little bit more and give him a steady floor of targets. I'm not going to bank on 9 from him, but like 5, 6 feels like 5.5 feels like the over under on targets for Terrace Marshall moving forward. And he's done very well with PJ Walker under center. Let's plug in a defense here. We'll get under 3K for it. Fine, whatever. Cardinals against Seattle. Great. That's fine with me. We'll deal more with defense as we move on in the week, as things become a little bit more crystal clear for what we should do in tournaments, leaving us with, let's say, a flex play. Let's put Wilson in. Wilson, wide receiver. He goes there, leaving us with a flex spot for 5,200. These guys all X out. It's going to put us out of the running back hunt unless an injury occurs and opens up somebody who is like a super value play who's 5,200 or down. Curtis Samuel His volume has kind of fallen off. He does not have a big ceiling unless he breaks a long touchdown. He is getting a lot of usage, but not quality of usage. It's not downfield usage. It's very low ADOT stuff where he is forced to break 2 and 3 tackles to scoot. It's not that it's out of the realm of possibility that he scores multiple touchdowns. It's just not as easy for him to get there. Somebody like Rondale Moore, who is finally playing all of his snaps back in the slot, is finally, especially after last year's debacle of a usage, getting targets beyond the line of scrimmage. DeAndre Hopkins is filling in outside and drawing double teams, allowing Rondale Moore to run around, specifically in the absence of Hollywood Brown. AJ Green being healthy and on the outside is at least eating up a cornerback, allowing Rondale Moore to run against nickel and dime corners and find mismatches when the opponents are playing zone against them. Rondale Moore at 5,200 last week, 5,100, produced very well. 8 targets, 7 catches. Week 6 against Seattle, 10 targets, 6 catches. He is finally being utilized the way that we want. This is a very easy value play with big time ceiling based on his athletic skill set. Finally got into the end zone for the first time against Minnesota. This is a much softer landing spot at home against Seattle's defense, who has given up tons of yards and catches to opposing slot players. So he's going to round out this lineup. Josh Allen, Etienne, Mixon, Diggs, Terrace. Hello, Terrace. Garrett Wilson, Dawson Knox, Rondale Moore, and the Cardinals defense. Thank you guys for watching. Look out for another one right there.
He's a legend.